We're going to get started here just in a moment. Can you guys hear me in the back of the room? Is that sounding fine? Great. Well, cool. Why don't we get started? We have a lot to get through today in the next hour or so. Or I have a lot to get through, and I'm hoping you guys have lots of questions as well. That tends to make this a bit more fun. If I have a tendency to talk fast, so if I'm talking too fast, just give me that signal of like, slow down. There we go. Yeah. Well, great. This is really exciting to be here to share. This morning I changed the title of the talk because the future is now, and it's more interesting to talk about the power of engagement, and I think that's going to be really interesting for you guys to take away what you can from this presentation. And oh, that's my big face on the screen. Can we actually go to the? Look, I'm even wearing the same jacket. That's funny. I have multiple jackets, trust me. But blue looks good. Okay, the power of engagement. A couple of bits of housekeeping. I made a new hashtag. It's just easier for me to respond to you guys' questions, especially offline, if we don't cover everything in the moment today. So the hash is for this session is IJFAJ+. And then you can @JigarMehta and @AJ+ as well if you want to. Well, great. Let me, just by a show of hands, has anyone even heard of AJ+ in the audience? Oh, fantastic. Great. We've made our way across the waters, as they say. And then just by a show of hands, who is a journalist in the room? Okay, great. And who works in a digital-only publication? Okay, great. Who consider themselves our competitors? Oh, come on. Only two. Okay, good. Frenemies, as we say. It's always a great thing. Okay, well, I think the best way to kick off a session about AJ+ is to watch a quick video that just gives you a little taste. And we're going to be watching, I hope you guys are in the mood to watch videos, since I have a ton of videos that we're going to show and kind of dissect and talk about through the session today. All right.
Empower.
Engage.
Defy.
Defy.
My favorite word is engage. At AJ+, we don't just inform and tell you the news. We want to hear from you.
What we do does defy what a standard news organization usually does.
Everyone's got a reaction to ISIS.
Brazil's become a major hotspot for surgical holidays.
Have you ever heard of WikiLeaks?
Ricky Lake.
What's so great about AJ+? It's new, it's fresh, it's the next generation of news.
What's exciting about the news today is being able to bring other voices into the conversation.
I know my rights. You got a gun pointed at me. I have not committed a crime.
Hearing back from people, I think, is important.
We tell stories in a unique way.
We want to hear about the stories that matter to you.
Great. So what is AJ+? So AJ+ is a brand new digital channel from Al Jazeera's innovation department. So we're not part of Al Jazeera English or Al Jazeera America. We actually are our own unique property. And my name is Jigar Mehta. I'm actually the engagement lead at AJ+. And so obviously when I talk about engagement, it's gonna, I'll really be talking about how we're using engagement kind of to be part of every part of the organization. So we always get this question, why we built AJ+, and there was a real opportunity for us to create a new property that was actually aimed at the US millennial. Like that is kind of our target demographic that we're building content for. And to look at that demographic and say, okay, like they're a mobile generation, they're connected, they are globally minded, and using that to say, let's create content for them. Let's actually create content that will lead them into that conversation space. And that was really the kind of the spark of the idea that started AJ+ and why we built AJ+. So a little bit more about us is it's really built on the notion of engagement, right? And when we really took that as kind of one of the core tenets when we started building AJ+. And really, as you kind of can see from the talk today, and as I kind of talk about how we operate as an organization, it really comes into every step of the process. You know, engagement is something we think about even from the pitch process all the way through the creation of a piece of journalism to its delivery, and then also the conversations that happen in the spaces after a piece is released. So I think it's important to know that we are a startup. We are a startup within the Al Jazeera Media Network, and we have a staff of 80 people who are all based in San Francisco. We're right across the street from the ballpark. If you guys come out to San Francisco, I encourage you to visit us. And it's a fantastic young group of journalists, coders, engagement producers, and I think we have one of the most diverse newsrooms in America, and it's a really fantastic group to be working with, for me personally. So this is kind of an overall structure of how we think about AJ Plus, and it's really broken down into, we have editorial production, right? And I'll dive into each of these various streams, but we have a team that's focused on reactive, real-time news that's actually happening in the moment. We have a team that's actually focused on contextual journalism. We have a documentary team as well that's producing personal narratives. And then also we have a satire team that we just started off. And all those teams kind of produce primarily video content, but they're also producing infographics. They're producing engagement modules as well. And then there's an engagement team as well, and that's actually primarily focused on creating additional content and maintaining our distribution channels. We have an app that I'll be talking a lot more about. We distribute on social, so crafting those experiences. There's obviously, this is a term we've heard a lot, audience development team. We're actually looking at how do we create the best opportunities for works to perform well on the internet. And there's also a data team that's actually pulling together our own data trails in order to see how we're performing in terms of engagement. We also have a platforms team, and that's actually an in-house technology team that's building our own iOS and Android apps. And then most important, I think this is very common with a lot of organizations, is building our own custom CMS. And what's really interesting, this is why I feel like we're more of a startup, and we're really influenced by being in San Francisco by this, is we don't have silos between teams. There is a nice blend between everyone that works at AJ Plus. And very much, when I'm talking to others about this, what's really interesting about AJ Plus too is every person who is a part of AJ Plus almost feels like they have ownership over it, right? And that's something that you actually see. It's part of the magic of why startups work, is people actually have physical ownership in startups. And in AJ Plus, they have this real sense of that they are the ones that are building this, and it's something that's fantastic to see within our teams. Cool. So another thing that's really unique about AJ Plus and the opportunity that we took when we built AJ Plus was we don't have a website. If you come to the ajplus.net website, it tells you we're like in all these other places. And that's really important because when we think about the audience, again, a young, globally connected or globally minded, mobile connected audience, they're not going to web pages. They're going to social places, right? And so we create content that lives in social places, whether it's Medium, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, within the iOS and Android apps. And all of a sudden, it's not the same content that's distributed all across. It's content that's actually unique to those places. And that's been, one of our kind of key learnings in the 6 months that we've been, since we've launched, to actually really be thoughtful and mindful about the audiences that are in those spaces and creating content for those specific communities. That's where a lot of the nitty-gritty of like actual workflows comes into place of how do you actually do that, right? And we can talk a little bit more about that if that's interesting. But for us, obviously like we're adding on new things and closing down things as we're kind of seeing how they work, right? For us. Cool. So the first is real-time. Real-time is one of our units within our company that produces videos primarily for Facebook. So if you consumed our content on Facebook, you probably have seen this content. It's really much based on what the conversations are happening right now in this moment or in this day, and using that to craft content. So I think we'll take a look at some of the pieces that we've created. So here's the first one. I think this was one of the most watched pieces that we created in the last quarter.
Hi, bud. Just talk to you real quick. Come here.
I'm not a
Dawson, please?
He's just kind of walking around close to the garage.
What does he look like?
He's a skinny black guy. He's got a toboggan on. He's really skinny.
Okay. I don't know. They don't speak English. Trying to pat him down because he keeps on walking away from him. You're all right. Put your legs on it. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
I come from very poor family and I work so hard here. I'm totally devastated.
I sincerely apologize to Mr. Patel, Mr. Patel's family, and our community.
So this was a, oops. There we go. Stop that for a second. A little preview of what's coming up. So that was a piece that we, it's seemingly a local news story, but it was something that when we add context to the story, we're able to also break it down. We're actually even subtitling the content so that it can be consumed on this device without, and I'll show some of the next ones without audio, so you can actually see that they actually work without audio, and they work with audio, that they really work for this device. And what we saw with this piece was it really led people into that empowerment stage where they shared the content with their networks. That's actually, and we'll talk a little bit about this later when I talk about how we think about analytics and success, is for us the power and the ability to get your audience to share your content to their network is a very powerful signal to us that something is resonating with our audience. And so for us, this was a piece that got shared, I believe, like over 10,000 times, very, very quickly, right, in the first 2 days. Seemingly a local news story. We were able to take video from YouTube, take local news video, add some context from the conversation that was happening. Again, so we saw that this was something that was trending. We said, let's contextualize it and share it with our audience, and it did phenomenally well. Also, again, when we're thinking, this is so the next piece I'm going to show you is a piece that we had created the morning after the State of the Union. So, leading up to the State of the Union, we had done a whole series of videos really breaking down the various issues, talking about, the various policies and news agenda items that Obama was going to release. The moment, the hour before the State of the Union, we even had a conversation happening in the app. And then the morning after, we knew everyone was going to be talking about reactions, and obviously there was a whole set of memes that were created. So this is one of our lighthearted videos that we did the next morning. We can watch it without sound. So one thing for us was we knew that this was like the conversation point, and for us, this piece of content actually was able to lead into our other content, kind of the contextual pieces that we had done. So again, it wasn't about compiling it all into one thing of like, hey, this was happening, and then also this was kind of a top of the funnel, driving people into the situation. Okay. Here's another piece that we did. Was one of the most popular pieces we had done. Again, really trying to play with the concept of taking video and then adding the context to it, right? This was, again, the trending hashtag we saw at the time. Interestingly, this is again a story that's out of Kenya, and what we saw, which was interesting for us, was this was a story that actually started doing phenomenally well in terms of the content and the conversation in Latin America. And so we're always kind of trying to understand what's actually how these things get seeded into communities and how they spread from there, because ultimately that actually helps us make better decisions down the line, right? So, for example, this was one that we thought would resonate well with the Kenyan audience, but all of a sudden it was picked up by, I believe, Yahoo Mexico, embedded there, and started a different conversation in that space, which was very interesting for us. So one of the interesting things about real time and this content that we're creating for YouTube is, for Facebook primarily, is that we're always trying to lead people into the conversation space. That's like a really big engagement module for us. So, we take, another thing you'll see is like the stuff is really high quality, and that's something that really resonates with the audience that we're trying to capture. Good graphics, good music, just the right, and then things like this, where at the end of the video, we actually ask that engagement question. So who would you vote for, right? And the beauty of when you publish this video on Facebook is the place to answer that question is right below. And people actually do that, and they actually engage. And the layer on top of that is, well, we jump in there and engage with them in that space. So we're not saying, come over here, come over to this party and have the conversation over here. We're saying, no, we know where you are. We're going to have the conversation where you are. It's been very interesting experiments for us. Cool. So now I want to talk about contextualizing the news, which is another one of our kind of our strands inside. And obviously, this was one of the key, things that we thought about when creating AJ Plus was really for this audience, short information-based explainer videos that would help explain the situations that were happening in the daily news cycle. So I want to show you guys a quick kind of overview of our context pieces.
Just for some context, Yuso's been around since the 70s. That's when Argentina's spy agency helped the dictatorship track its own people.
Imagine being kidnapped. You're then flown to a black site run by the CIA.
Say hello to never buying a house. We're the millennials.
I just hope things might change for the better, but us, the people, really need to move forward and make that happen ourselves.
By 2050, several countries could disappear underwater.
The U.S. is no rookie when it comes to treating immigrants with hostility.
If I was a white dude for a day, I just kind of walk around and exist.
Un's been getting surgery on his ankles after hurting them back in July while wearing these. ¡Qué tacones!
The rise of free trade and China's cheap labor force has made it the workshop of the world.
How can we accept a government that permits and perpetuates violence against its people?
But climate change is putting the brakes on food production.
Americans spent $28 billion on cocaine in 2010 alone.
I believe he was before his time.
With a population of 23 million, there are 55 firearms per 100 Yemenis.
The U.S. spent $640 billion on weapons in 2013 alone.
Here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you.
So you can get, and we'll dive into a couple of these in a moment, but you can see that these are, this section of AJ Plus's offering is primarily host-led. It's really personality-driven. It's really high-quality animation. We have a team up to 5 animators working on these pieces. They are kind of like info-packed nuggets. And then, again, these do phenomenally well in terms of building kind of the flavor of what AJ Plus is, and kind of, again, like when we're trying to build brand loyalty with this younger generation, they come to us for this type of content. And we're trying it from all different angles. I think, we started off doing very much just straight animations, and we're really trying to expand that. Like trying to blend animation with man on the street. We're trying to do interviews in different ways. You can see some of the things we did with more performance art. So it's all very experimental from us, because it's like, this is the opportunity that we have right now. We're not trying to fill 30 minutes on a TV station. We actually have, the internet allows us to really be very experimental. So let's look at some of the pieces that that this team has produced.
With more than 1.7 million people living there, this tiny strip of land is one of the most densely populated areas in the world and one of the worst places to live. It's been called the world's largest open-air prison. Here's why.
So this was interesting because we had pre-produced a bunch of explainer videos on a whole host of topics, including this one about the Gaza Strip, like what is the Gaza Strip, right? And we had soft launched our YouTube channel. That was our first kind of opening of AJ Plus in late June. Early July was when the conflict started happening, and it was kind of one of these things that helped actually bring a lot of audience to AJ Plus. But then also it was this early indicator that when you provide contextual journalism to a larger news situation, especially for the connected generation, it really kind of brought back people and kind of created this brand loyalty from an early point. The challenge with this is it's hard to, a news event happens and then these animations can take a few days to produce. So for example, we are always trying to build a batch of evergreen content for releasing when the moments arise. Let's take a look at another piece.
Voted in outrage over the 43 students who went missing at the end of September in the town of Iguala. Now, according to authorities, local police in the state of Guerrero arrested the students and handed them over to a drug cartel who killed them, incinerated their bodies, and dumped them by a river. The students were from a rural teachers' college called Ayotzinapa, the word on everyone's lips.
So again, this was a video that actually also did phenomenally well for us and actually helped grow our audience in Latin America. Again, this was probably a week or two after things were really starting to heat up in Mexico, and we said, let's break down the word, let's actually explain it, let's contextualize almost a TikTok of what happened. Since then, we've been continuing to follow that story pretty aggressively, and every time, we think about if a person doesn't actually understand the situation, here's the background video. Now you can actually understand just what happened today or this week or this very, what's happening right now by understanding the context of it, right? And so when you see the content in its natural form on YouTube or on Facebook, you can actually start to see all the connections between pieces, which is very interesting for us.
Get back in your row!
Okay, stop.
Lieutenant, what the hell was that?
Yeah, that was a situation that is played numerous times on dash cam videos all around the country.
I don't understand. So, this is so untypical, right? But you put an officer through this training, and they're going to be really aggressive anytime they stop a car. The next time I pull someone over, I'm going to reach for my gun, but I shouldn't because he is an anomaly. He's the exception, not the rule.
Well, you're right, but we have to train for those exceptions.
As an officer, then, I need to operate with the assumption that everyone's a potential threat.
You should always be prepared to defend your life at any moment.
So obviously, this was a big part of the conversation last year and actually into what's even right now. And we had produced a classic green screen animation video when I believe it was when is it okay for the cops to use deadly force, right? And we still felt like actually, we want to actually take our audience into these trainings. We want them to, through our presenter, through Dina, to actually understand what is the training that police cadets go through in order to understand the situation. And for us, it was an ability to show it, but then also the comments and the conversation that happened as a result of this piece has been a very active place for our producers to be involved with. Every time a situation happens, and they're seeming to happen more and more nowadays, it allows us to actually resurface this content and re-engage a conversation. So again, when we're creating these context pieces, we are thinking about the evergreen quality and not directly tying it to a moment, but being able to find ways to reintroduce it into the conversations. Okay, here's another one. We'll take a look.
White privilege. You may not be aware if you have it, but you sure as hell know if you don't. White privilege refers to the benefits white people get from society that people of color don't. It's walking into a store and not being followed on the suspicion you might steal. It's wearing baggy pants and a backwards hat and not being labeled a gangsta. And it's not being harassed by the cops. But what does it mean to you?
What is white privilege?
In my opinion, I would say that white privilege is a luxury that white people have of not being judged off top.
You know, it's probably subtle, but...
So again, we could have done it just as a man on the street or just as animation. We really wanted to tie the two together. There was a whole conversation also that was happening on Facebook, on our app as well, kind of an offline, or not an offline, sorry, like a non-video version of this conversation, which we jumped into and kind of helped guide. So again, these what we're seeing is the small video elements, and small in sense of time, not in terms of quality, in terms of effort that goes into them, lead people and are part of the baseline for getting people into these conversation spaces. So great. So you kind of seen that we've done very short videos that are kind of based off of the actual the conversations that are happening in the moment. We do these contextual videos as well, which are kind of more thematic sometimes. And then we also produce documentaries. We really want to be able to draw audiences into the human element. So we have a documentary unit that actually produces, again, short, but not short for us, about up to 12-minute mini documentaries. So I want to show you a kind of sampling of those. Oh, you know what? No, we're going to talk about mobile journalism. Actually, obviously, this has actually been another hallmark of AJ Plus, is we really believe that we want to not only create content for this device, but we should be creating content with the device. And 2014 was a kind of a big year in terms of a lot of the street movement, right? And we were in those movements a lot. We were there in Ferguson, we were there in Hong Kong, we were there in Turkey. And so let me just show you a little clip of kind of our mobile journalism.
Мы сюда пришли для того, чтобы смотреть на то, как проходят протесты в Америке.
Black Lives Matter!
Well, this is the biggest march to date. Thousands of marchers heading down to a historic courtyard here.
Fight back! Fight back! Take it back! Take these on Dixie-Man! Take it back! Take these on Dixie-Man! This is what democracy looks like!
This has been a very popular home defense chapter.
So again, this is like a franchise we call it Direct From. So one of the benefits of being a startup within a large media company is being able to tap into larger resources and work with other companies as well. So we work with a company called Story Hunter that allows us to tap into a larger network of freelancers from around the world. So not only are we sending our own crews to Ferguson, to Oakland, to Hong Kong, but we're also being able to tap into larger networks. So we've actually developed this series, essentially, we call it Direct From, which is taking kind of raw video from street protests and kind of contextualizing them. These are actually two of our producers, Brooke and Hunter, who are actually in Ferguson. So Hunter, on the right, was actually filming one of our documentaries, which you'll see in a minute, and he was filming kind of with the classic C300, and Brooke was there filming with her iPhone rig. And so we were covering the story from all angles, and even our crews that are there doing documentaries, long-form documentaries, so right now we're doing a documentary in Dresden, we are using the mobile device to communicate with our audience in real time. So for example, there was a protest in Dresden on Monday. We were live streaming it while we were filming the documentary. So really trying to be authentic about the device that our audience is watching the content and creating it on the same device. So for example, here is a video that we produced the morning, basically the morning after the announcement in Ferguson. And what you're seeing is the cut piece that we had produced that night, all shot with an iPhone. And what was interesting was we were actually also sending and uploading clips during the moment, right? So something would happen, we would upload that, and there was a real active conversation happening on Twitter and Facebook. But then we were also using the pieces to create this longer format piece. So, we always get the question, like we're seeing more and more of this, right? Wherever it's especially with protest movements and scenarios, there's so many cameras, there's so much imagery being created. Why do you send your reporters with just a mobile phone? For us, it's two things. One is it's the power of the constraint for us to learn from in order to make smarter decisions as we build our organization. But secondly, it's the value of having a reporter. Our reporters Shadi and Brooke were there 3 times over the course of 3 months. They were able to build contacts. They were able to understand the story. They were deeply embedded in that story, and there's no price you can put on that. And that's one of the things that we really value and we think about. And the tool is very powerful, and we think about that in terms of the constraint for us. And so here's our team as they were preparing for Ferguson and in Ferguson. And you can see they're literally using an iPhone with an aftermarket rig, and they're able to get content that is very authentic and very different than what we were seeing across cable and even across just kind of Twitter and Facebook in terms of individuals. Cool. So now we're going to go back into documentaries, I hope. Yes. Okay, great. So let's take a look at our documentary strand.
Are you filming me?
You can't continue to bulldoze over my people.
White phosphorus is illegal under international law, and it was used against civilians, monks in this case.
Yeah, but surely it's a red flag. You've got to go, okay, let's look at this now.
Y'all not in the right headspace right now, but let me help you. We're going to get there together, because somebody got to get us there. So let's get there.
It's unbelievable.
It's no longer a question of if we will remain in the country forever. It's a matter of when we will have to leave.
So for us, this is amazing. If I hope you guys are like AJ Plus is awesome and I want to just consume this content. And we have a ton of great content now that we've been out for 6 months, including 45 documentary films. And you can start to see now that there are themes emerging in our storytelling and kind of the topics that we cover. And those are the topics and themes that we really see resonating with the audience that we're going after. Again, the power of the constraint of saying, who is your audience? What are the storylines that are going to resonate with them? And then covering it through various different angles. So the last department.
That's what was done.
Here we go. So the last of the four kind of format groups is satire, and this is actually a very experimental space for us. I think we all understand the value and the ability for satire, kind of like information-based jokes to actually draw in audience as well. And actually, so what we did about 3 months ago is we brought in Australian comedian Dan Ilic to come in and actually start to build out a satire unit. And rather than showing you, I think I'm actually going to show you a piece. Do we have any people? Is anyone from Greece here? Okay, good. You'll enjoy it. Well, I think all of Europe will enjoy this piece I'm about to show.
That's what was done.
All right, here we go. This is a piece that we released, I think about six weeks ago.
Kalimera, patrioti. Over the next 2 minutes, I want to talk to you about something that will keep your interest up, but put our interest down. Greece. It is a Mediterranean democracy consisting of over 2,000 islands and 4,000 British backpackers. We have a long history of creating some revolutionary ideas. Democracy, philosophy, Yanni. We were doing excess body hair before hipsters, and we were doing same-sex everything before it was cool. And also, lamb on a spit, we invented it. The alarm clock, we invented it. The Olympics, we invented it. Our history of innovation has put us on the map, which we also invented. But it could all come to a dramatic halt. You see, after inventing everything, we got tired and rested on our laurels, which we also invented. And now, because we haven't invented anything in a long time, we owe the world 371 billion euros. We were this close to inventing the iPod, but you know, it was a sunny day and there was free ouzo in Syntagma Square, so... Some people say to me, but if you didn't smash so many plates, you'd be able to pay off the debt quicker. And I say, yes, but if we didn't smash the plates, we'd have to pay someone to wash them up, no? Some people complain, they go, oh, perhaps we should rein in spending, stop tax avoidance and corruption. And I say, here, take this little envelope of cash, which we invented, and they never complain again. And that's where you come in. With just a little help from you, we can get back to inventing things. When you donate to our Greekstarter, you don't have to go home empty-handed.
Okay, so you guys can watch the rest on your own. But again, we're always trying to think about other ways to get people into these conversations. And then when you watch this video, again, in its native spaces, you can see, or in the app, we actually lead to all the other content that we've done about the situation here in Europe, and leading people into that conversation spaces around it. Satire is a very interesting and delicate thing actually with an audience. So you can even see in the beginning, we actually put the word satire. Our first few pieces, we didn't have satire, and it really threw the audience for a loop. So there's a lot of power in that, in the form, especially with this generation of users that we're going after, and we're really some of the stuff. It's really interesting to see what hits and what misses, and so it's one of those things that we're learning from as well. All right, let's see what's next. Great. So, obviously for an organization like us, what's happening in the news is very important, right? And that's actually how we think about the content that we create. But we also want to put things on the news agenda that we believe in as AJ+, right? And so we've been really using themes as a way to kind of approach that, and actually as a way to kind of tie together all our content across satire, documentaries, context in real time into a cohesive package. So the first one that we had done in the month of February was one that we called Africa Reset. So here's a taste of that.
When you see news about Africa, it's usually Ebola, displacement, or Boko Haram, right? But there's another side to the continent that doesn't get reported. We're gonna help you hit the reset button on Africa. We're gonna help you hit the reset button on Africa.
So again, for us, we produced about 35 pieces of journalism around the theme over the course of the month and released it, right? Seeing if we can draw the audience through a theme. And so this is something that we're actually trying to learn from. Obviously, it's not like we have one day where we say this is it and this is all our content. It's actually trying to understand how these mechanics work on these social networks, right? So whether you create your own hashtag or creating a playlist, and we're seeing what works and trying to use that as we do future themes. Future themes that we just actually finished a whole month on food and looking at the global food situation and also how food fits into culture and society. We're about to embark on one about the U.S. criminal justice system with an exciting partner that we'll be announcing shortly. And also we're doing one later this year that's focused on surveillance. Again, these are things that we know resonate with our audience, and so that's why we choose them as thematic topics. Great. And so on top of all this, there is the engagement team, right? So we've been showing you a lot of, I've been showing you a lot of video content. Well, there's a whole layer that, when you engage with our content in our social spaces, that actually leads you to this engagement space again. So that's really looking at the language that's written around a video. It's actually looking at the infographic that goes along with a piece of content. It's how it's presented in the app. And there's a whole team that's actually dedicated to that whole user experience, right? I like to say that the engagement team is actually, user focused. They're actually thinking about the needs of our user and trying to bring that back into the organization. It's one of these things that, it's like kind of the word, I've said this a few times in some other conferences. It's like the word digital. I'm glad the word digital is finally going away and we're just back to media, right? It's not digital media and print media or old media. It's just media now. I think engagement's another word that's, that will hopefully go away. And that engagement, and this is what we're doing is, our engagement team is essentially the river guides for the organization. They actually take everyone through the journey of engagement, especially when you're creating an organization where engagement is the key to that. They do that, right? And so they are the ones that help shepherd a piece through the process, but then also are thinking about the user in that process as well. It's something that we are actually also thinking about. How do we get more of our producers, whether they're in-house or freelancers, working on the engagement element? So I can go into more details about that too, if that's interesting for folks. And finally, one other thing I want to kind of mention in terms of part of the team is we have this fantastic program. It's the AJ Plus Global Engagers program. And what we have done is we actually have a one-year fellowship, essentially, where people work with AJ Plus. And they are basically around the world, everywhere from India to Israel to London to Saudi Arabia to Ghana to Colombia to Canada to the U.S., and they are a fantastic group of 8 young people who are working directly with AJ Plus, kind of activating our content in their communities. But they also are bringing stories that are untold from their communities and conversations into our space. One thing that we actually see that's really interesting with our user is they want to have a this young person in Chicago wants to have a conversation with someone in Ghana, as they do with someone in Indonesia. So we're helping to actually activate that. And for us as an organization, we're actually trying to build the leaders for our organization. So this is a great way for us to do that. They're entering into their 6th month of the program. And so we'll be, activating the program again later this year. So if you know any kind of young budding journalists who are really actively engaged and are actually excited about engaging audiences, let them know about this program. It's something that we're really proud of. Okay, let me just take a quick look at the time. I have about 15 minutes. I'm just going to take you guys on a quick spin around our various properties. So you can kind of see, obviously, YouTube is one of the places that we're very active in, and we're kind of moving into a space where we actually now, thinking about the content, where the content will go. Is this a piece that's made for YouTube? Is it made for Facebook? Is it made for Instagram? And we're trying to learn a little bit more about how pieces perform in different places. So, for example, one thing that we know about YouTube is primarily driven by two things. One is subscribers, and two is by search. And so the ability to get a piece of content into the search algorithm quickly is very key to its success. Also, one of the things that we've noticed with YouTube is the power of the embed in other people's sites, right? So we do a lot of work, our audience development team, reaching out to third-party websites and organizations and having them embed our content. Obviously, we know the power of Facebook in terms of video. And I think that's something that we were very bullish on from the beginning. As soon as native uploading was a thing in early August of last year, we went kind of whole hog in, and we've seen really phenomenal success with it. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges with Facebook. It's a very new platform. They haven't turned on monetization, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of audience reach and authenticity, it's been phenomenal for us. Let me see if this is a video that we did.
This is not good, people.
Well, the internet's a little down, but this is a video that we actually did yesterday. I don't know if anyone saw this story out of DC. And actively, you can see the conversation is just happening right below, and it's so easy as a producer to just be able to come in here and just jump into the conversation, and we really actively encourage that. Again, Twitter is a very different environment that we're learning, and it's not a place that video consumption has really taken off yet, but we're really probably actively pushing in that space. And also, it's a place that we say, okay, this is a place to actually have more of a live conversation with our audience, right? As opposed to being a place that we just publish all our content. And we're trying to do more things like with infographics, which do phenomenal on Twitter. Kind of like these, like info-packed graphics. This is a company that we've partnered with called Infogram that actually allows us to style things in our colors and our fonts, and then produce, create content very, very quickly from our producers. And then, Instagram. Instagram is one that we were looking to probably focus more on this year. But one thing that we've learned early is being able to authentically use the space. It's not a place to say, here's a 15-second version of a video. Here's where to watch more of the video. You have to treat it like people are in that space and not going to leave that space. So one thing that we did actually during Africa Reset, which was really successful for us, was actually doing account takeovers. So we had a series of 6, maybe 3 to 6 photojournalists around the continent take over our Instagram account, right? That we actually gave them our passwords. They actually, we paid them, and they actually were like correspondents for AJ Plus, using our Instagram account to tell stories about Africa through our account. All right. So, and I just want to show you one. This is a project that we were proud to be participating with. It's called Do Not Track. I don't know if anyone has heard of it yet. It just came out on Tuesday. It's a fantastic interactive documentary about the web economy. It was done in partnership with Arte and the NFB, and we came on as a media partner as well. And again, and that's because it really is a topic that really resonates with our audience, and we wanted to be able to bring that content to them. If you haven't had a chance, I'll send out the link, but it's a fantastic interactive documentary that actually, let's see if it plays.
We've all got our addictions. We've all got our routine. Mine is to wake up, get caffeine, and go online. A little bit on a desktop, a bit on my phone. Over the morning, I give away gigabytes of information about
internet. So what's interesting about this project is, the whole concept, the whole conceit with it is, if you give us your data, we will show you how your data is being used by the trackers. And it's a very participatory project where you actually enter in some information about like the news sites you go to, where are you logging in from, and it's to help us understand as a community and track the trackers. So it's a project that's actually being released out in 7 episodes and 1 every 2 weeks. So it just came out, and there'll be episodes 1 and 2 at donottrack-doc.com. Okay. Cool. I want to get through a couple of more things. Obviously, the one thing I haven't talked fully about is the mobile app, and this is one of our premier experiences. You know, why do we build a mobile app? I mean, it's one of these things where when you're dependent on other people's platforms, there's actually a lot of value in having your own platform as well. And we think about it for our essentially our super user. And it's a place that actually lets us also kind of do sketches and actually try to test out ideas. Again, you know, I think one of our mission, part of our mission statements is we are part of the innovation department at Al Jazeera. We would really want to learn new methodologies, new workflows, new kind of storytelling tools with a mobile audience. So again, as a mobile-first organization, having an app is a big part of that strategy. So let me just give you a quick taste of the app.
What does a broadcast news organization look and feel like when it's no longer trying to just be broadcast?
We've reimagined the concept of the news story by breaking all of the conventions. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we have an app.
What you really want to do is take advantage of the mobile device.
The app is basically a glimpse into all the conversations that are going on, and they're organized by themes. Those themes are what we call stacks.
Sometimes they're video cards that are capturing the breaking news, sometimes it's the human element, sometimes it's the context, so that as we add new elements, new cards, new videos, etc., we can alert you.
The mission of AJ Plus is to give our younger audience a snapshot of what's going on in the world.
We are bringing the audience into the fold.
We're first trying to figure out what it is that people are interested in, what they're talking about.
It's not about trying to read 2,000 words in one sitting, but keeping in touch with that issue over time.
We have stories from all over the world.
We have a core group of people who are here in San Francisco. We come in every morning and we've scoured the news and we've tried to figure out sort of what stories have risen to the top, what stories are important for the day.
We try and create a package, and that develops over time.
The future of news is no longer TV, it's online, it's in the social space. It's AJ Plus.
So I think, you know, if as a community, if you're very interested to see where we're going to be pushing the boundaries, it's going to be in the AJ Plus app. You know, we've kind of set the bar for it, or the floor for it, and it's really built around this concept of cards and stacks. We're actually seeing this as an industry trend as well. An idea is like each piece of content that we create fits on a card, right? Each is distinct. It's very shareable. It lives on its own. A card can live in multiple places. It can be in part of multiple stories. Again, you know, when we do explainers, what is Ebola? That can live in multiple different stories about Ebola. And they tell the story through contextualization, right? So a story can build up over time. For us, you know, when we think about Facebook, we think about the share. When we think about the app, we think about the follow. We want people to actually start following stories. For example, like the U.S. elections, that it's going to be a story that's going to play out over the next 18 months, actually beyond a little bit too. And so we want people to be able to start to follow that story and see it evolve over time. We break it down into kind of various elements. I mean, we have art cards, which are a big part of the app, really kind of heavy visuals, lots of infographics, and these work again, they work phenomenal on this device. Of course, we have our video cards as well. Every piece of content that we create lives in a video as a video element, and you know, I think this is a big consumption habit we're seeing on the app. Again, the conversation that's happening is right below, which is a great way. We also think about quizzes, right? So we've been doing a lot of quizzes that kind of test people's knowledge about a piece. We're actually even thinking about, you know, what happens when you put a quiz first and then you put the video after the quiz, and what's that user flow look like? Again, this is something that, you know, when people see a debate, when they get a yes-no or kind of a two-choice engagement module, it's something that gets over 90% engagement, which is phenomenal. And then also the conversation, a place to have a deeper debate with the audience, really asking a specific question and then driving the conversation around that. Again, with all of these places, wherever we're having these conversations, our team is actually trying to drive that conversation in there. So whether if it's on Facebook or in the app, trying to say, what are people talking about? Where do we want to drive them to in terms of a debate? All right, did some sync. Okay, data. Okay, great. And so, let me just give you a brief taste of how we think about data. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to talk a lot more about data. It's something I look at every day. I think about it every day. We try to actually make sure everyone in the organization is thinking about data every day. So when you come to, and we're in the process of actually doing this in our newsroom, is having a lot more data displayed all around. That actually makes people understand how their content is doing. So one thing we think about is the way we measure, right? And we kind of are centered on engagement as our core metric. We know that leads to, if you focus on engagement, it leads to likes because it goes through a measure of sharing and reach and impressions, and then it leads to likes. Page likes being someone actually actively engaging, saying I'm going to subscribe and whatnot. And the reason we do that is, we want to focus on that. If we can get people to engage with our content, they will become brand loyal, which will make them actually share our content more across their networks and actually draw in more users. That's kind of the methodology we use. And so we think about an engagement score, right? That's actually how we think about it. We yes, of course, it's when a piece does 4 million views, you're that's phenomenal. But on a piece-by-piece basis, we're actually trying to understand the engagement around that piece. And very simply, we just think about, likes, comments, shares weighted differently, divided by how many people saw it. And then we actually use that to actually help us understand how do pieces do when compared to themselves. We've built I was hoping there was going to be a little bit more time so I can actually show you. Vote for us. Got to get that plug in. To show you our dashboard. So we've actually built a dashboard based off of Tableau, which is allowing us to actually have, and we give that data to each producer to be able to see how their content is doing. And I think with that, I know you guys probably had a lot of, these are all the different places you can find us. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube. If you'll probably see, if you like the page, you'll see more of our content organically through the algorithm. And then I would say what's interesting for us is, this is the beginning of a really big movement for the media network, and I think for broadcast in general, really being very specific about a user and creating content for that user, and then using almost a shared services model to power lots of different communities. AJ Plus English is our first kind of sketch, and I think when you think about where our content does really well, we're going to be expanding and kind of growing and doing a lot more in terms of internationalization of AJ Plus. I think that's a very natural place for us to be. So the last thing I would say is, one of the benefits of coming to conferences and moments like this is actually to strike partnerships. We've done a lot of great partnerships so far. We're about to embark on a few more that are very exciting for us. Partnerships in terms of editorial partnerships, monetization partnerships, even audience partnerships. Which are all kind of what we have to do in this new economy of the internet in order to, it's not a zero-sum game, and I think that's something, when we think about it in that time, we can actually benefit both organizations. So it's something I'm really excited to talk about with many partners here. You can also, it's easy to get a hold of me. Twitter, Facebook, email. And please ask questions on Twitter. I'll be sure to answer them all using the hashtag and get back to you guys. I'm sorry that we didn't have any time for questions during the official session. But I had a lot to share with you. I hope that was okay. And I got stickers. Hi, how are you?
Doing a brief interview for the festival, little quote.